Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining. It's the first CRID webinar series, and I'm actually very happy to, to see such crowd. I think we were going to have a very interesting webinar today. I will leave it to our moderator, Professor Muhannad, to introduce, our speaker, and also to talk a little bit about what's going to happen. So Professor Muhannad, please, the stage is all yours.
All right, thanks George, and welcome everyone to the first webinar of the CRID Webinar Series, and thanks for joining us today. I'll be introducing the first webinar for today, titled Destination Architect, Creating Value in Your Career, by Professor Alex Albani, who will be introducing the National Council of Architectural Registration Boards, Licensing and Registration, and will help whose degree is NAAB accredited to understand the procedures on how to become an architect in the United States. Let me introduce Professor Alex Albani as an architect and academic with over 23 years of international experience. He began his career teaching CAD at the University of California at Berkeley in 1994, where he earned both his Master of Architecture and Master of Arts in Design. He continued after graduation as a CAD BIM specialist and a store designer for Gap, Louis Vuitton, and Mix. He joined the American University in Dubai in 2008 with the purpose of introducing BIM into academia. Alex gained valuable CAD, BIM, and design build experience working on projects that range from creating driving design construction streamlined branded standards to phasing technology focused on upgrade international transitions. His design build portfolio includes 1999 to 2004 UK, France, Germany, and Japan Gap stores. His Middle East design build portfolio includes 2005 to 2007 Casablanca, Beirut, Riyadh, and Dubai Mix flagships. His CAD BIM portfolio includes 2007 to 2009 Dubai Festival City. Alex's contributions in academia include the integrated computational design emphasis and the introduction of BIM as core subject. He was also responsible of AD's MOU with Autodesk and for setting up AD as the first academic Autodesk authorized certification center in the Middle East. He actively promotes BIM professional certification as well as National Council of Architectural Registration Board licensing and registration. Alex is an associate member of the American Institute of Architects, a BIM Revit for Architectural Design certified professional, and an Autodesk certified instructor. He received the AD President's Award for Teaching Excellence, as well as the AD Provost's Award for Innovative Teaching in the subject area of digital design and fabrication technologies. I'll leave it now for Professor Alex to introduce the first webinar series, the first CRID webinar series. Professor Alex, the stage is yours.
All right. Can you
Professor,
guys...
sorry, before we start, just to mention also, I think Professor Muhannad forgot to mention, guys, if you have any questions, and so please ask on the Q&A, and then of course, Professor Muhannad will read it at the end to Professor Alex, who can answer that. So make sure to please only use the Q&A chat so that we can actually read your questions, and accordingly, the professor will answer. So go ahead, please, sorry.
That's all right. Thank you, George. Thank you, Muhannad. I am happy to be here, guys. And for me, it's an honor and a privilege to do this first webinar as part of CRID, and hopefully more amazing webinars in the future and successful ones. Listen, I can see a lot of my students here as attendees. That's great. I'm happy to see your names. Let's get started. Let me just share my screen with you and open up my presentation. I think you'll still see my video. Maybe it's like it's going to be somewhere on the, wait, hang on, how, share screen. Yeah, let me share the whole desktop. I don't want to, I think I can close out of this. I can put this on the side, and I want to open up this, this presentation. Oops, yeah, that's good. I'm okay with this. 1 second, guys. Let me just get myself up and running here. Let me put it in full screen mode. Yeah, that's good. All right, I'm going to assume that everybody can see my presentation, and let's get started. I'm hoping that I saw a couple of names that I don't recognize, but I'm hoping that we have a couple of people from the industry. And I'm just hoping that we have some people from the industry, so perhaps they can give us some insight towards the end during the Q&A, or if they can take, I'd be interested in their insight. I'm also interested in your own insight, guys. Most of you come from different countries. So the title for this presentation is Destination Architect, Creating Value in Your Career. It is an overview into how to become a licensed and a registered architect in the US. Even though it applies to the US, and don't think that there are no common elements between this and how you become licensed and registered in other countries. And it's already, I can share with you, most of you are in Dubai, and I can hopefully you will get to practice if you go into the profession and without going to graduate school first. And if you start practicing, I know that a society of architects is in the works. So a lot of what we're going to talk about it carries over in other countries and the UAE and Dubai. So don't think that this just applies to the US. At one point, I'm going to make a reference to how this ties in with other countries' licensing and registration. I think I said that. But there are also alliances that are strengthening over time in terms of how you become licensed and registered. There is already an alliance between the US, Canada, the UK, Australia. There's a couple of other countries. And I'm already working on a project that's trying to embrace even more countries. Anyway, let's get started. It's an interesting subject. And let's just get started. So I'd like to start by telling you that NCARB itself, NCARB is the organization that oversees and regulates licensing and registration in the US. It's all over the social media. They have a presence on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram, and I can share this presentation. I have no, I can share it with you if you're interested. Just send me an email, and I'll be so that you can maybe take note or make note of some things that you may pick up today. So they have extensive social media presence. And the first question that comes to mind is, why earn a license? Well, in the US and in other countries like Canada, Australia, the UK, and eventually the UAE, it is going to happen here in the UAE. They're working on it. You cannot call yourself an architect, guys, unless you are licensed and registered. You cannot, it's an extra credential, it gives you increased value, it gives you independence. You cannot start your company unless you are licensed, registered. It gives you, of course, it validates your educational training, your practical training, and it gets you to get your own at the end once you've gone through the licensing and registration process. You get your own seal, and basically this seal, when you stamp with it any architectural drawing, it's basically good to go, and then your drawings are acceptable for review by municipalities and so on, and then your design and building gets onto getting built. The other reason about becoming licensed is that we as architects have a big responsibility, and that is it's our responsibility to watch out for the safety and the welfare of the society where we design and build buildings. That's more of a reason, other than all these reasons that you see on the slide, to pursue licensing and getting registered. I think we are taking questions. So if you have a question, just note down your question. I'm happy to answer it. I think Professor Mohanad is going to help us make this process of Q&A, take care of that at the end of the presentation. On the way to becoming licensed and registered, there's a number of what they call collateral organizations. There's 5 other collateral well, in total, there are 5 collateral organizations. Some of you, all of you are already members of the AIS. This is the logo for the AIS. There is the AIA is involved. We all work together. It so happens just that the NCARB is the organization that's responsible for regulating licensing and registration. NAAB, as you know, is responsible for accrediting architectural professional programs. The AIA is responsible for empowering architects in the US. The AXA is responsible for overseeing the quality of education in architectural schools. And they have conferences and they have, there's events that they set up that allow for all this to happen in terms of improving the quality of education wherever there is an architectural program. So this is what is meant by this graphic is to show you that this is like the 3 big E's, as some of my colleagues at NCARB would refer to this. The first one is education. The second is second E is for experience, and the third E is for examination. And don't look at this and think of it in a linear fashion. It doesn't mean that if you start your experience that you cannot clock in hours, for example. There's different requirements. There's educational requirements, there is experience requirements, and there is examination requirements. But I'm just sharing this graphic, and I want to stress the point that you don't think of this in a linear fashion. You can earn clock in hours before you start your education. I'm going to get more into detail this a little bit later as we progress with the presentation. But this is what it takes. It's a combination of education, experience, and examination to get yourself licensed and registered in the US. And I realize that this is happening in the US, but don't forget, this is the interesting thing. Part of this is that NCARB is international, as is AIA, as is the AIS is international. You guys, we have our own chapter at AUD. NCARB is going international right now, and they're working. They have an alliance with other countries. They're working. I'm already on a project that's happening with the UAE and all that. So even though this is coming out of the US, there is an international aspect to it, and it's good to be aware of all this. So let's go. We're going to go more into detail in terms of each, but these are the 3 main components to get you to get the seal. This is the icing on the cake, as the expression goes. This is what every architect wants to. Those who see themselves as designers, if you see yourself as becoming designing buildings and seeing your buildings built, this is what you're aiming for. All right. Well, let me see how I can do that. I want to share with you a website and show you how extensive the whole process and the setup is, because NCARB has quite a number of people, dedicated full-time employees actually, and then they work with other collaterals. And myself, I happen to be the licensing advisor for AUD. Each NAAB program is required to have a dedicated licensing advisor for the architecture students. Let me just give me a second here so I can manage to share with you also the desktop. Oops. Yeah, this is good. I think you still can see my screen, but I want you to see this. I want to go to This is what I want you to see, everybody. So this is the website for NCARB. It's very extensive. There's a lot in here, but I want you to see this in here. If we go to get licensed and we go to licensing requirements tool, I just want to show you this map. It's interactive and it makes life easy. I mean, this is what I tell to my students in my classes, things that make life easy and just more of a smooth for us to understand what's going on. So the nice thing about this is, you see, this is the map of the US, and also there's Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands and Guam. It's basically the 50 states plus the 4, I think they call them protectorates. So the Puerto Rico, Virgin Islands, these are American protectorates. Anyway, the good thing about this is that, let's say you see yourself getting licensed and getting registered in California, for example. So you click on the state, and in here it shows you what is required. The point of this is that each state varies somewhat from the other state. It doesn't mean that if you become licensed and registered in one state that you cannot in the other states. You can, and we'll talk a little bit more about this towards the end. It doesn't mean that you have to live full-time in the US. You can be living in Dubai and be an American licensed and registered. You don't have to be an American, guys. Again, just remember what I was saying. There's other international parallels with NCARB and what they're trying to do. So the point of this, again, yeah, you click on any state in here and it shows you what's required and what's specific to that state. So for example, California, we were talking about this big 3 E's. There's education, there is experience, and there is examinations. When it comes to California, you just have to take an extra exam or prove that you have knowledge that relates to what happens with buildings, how to retrofit buildings seismically, for example. This is not required if you are in Texas, for example. Your knowledge of seismic ordinances are not required in Texas. However, if you go to Florida, you see it changes in here. In Florida, you'd be required to have some knowledge about hurricanes and how to take care of hurricane ordinances when designing and building buildings. So this is an amazing website. It's called NCARB. Start with this. Just go by ncarb.org. And this is under, I mean, this is very extensive. It's right under Get Licensed and Licensing Requirements tools. All right. Okay, let's go back. I mean, there's a lot to bring up here, but let's just go and give you some insight into the different parts of this. Let me maximize this and go back in here. Full screen. All right. So we were just talking about this, the website. Let's go to the next slide. The licensing advisors community is a big community. I'm a member of that community, and every couple of years we have seminars that we all participate in, and we get updated on what's happening with, because the whole process gets updated. So I managed to attend the last update in Minneapolis last summer. Okay, well, let's get a little bit deeper in education. So education, when you go to the website, it's really extensive, everybody, in terms of meeting the educational requirements. It's very extensive, but let me just give you some introductory insight into this. This is a snapshot from the website. The education guidelines and other guidelines, experience guidelines, examination guidelines, all of this is on the NCARB website. But as far as education, I want to tell you that most people that pursue licensing and registration happen to have attended a NAAB accredited program. It's not fully required. If you didn't go to a NAAB attended program, it's just that you have extra things to do. So I want to tell you that the whole process is very stringent. It really is very stringent. I'm going to share some numbers with you a little bit later. And so it's something to be taken very seriously. And again, I just want to tie this with, it's because architects have a responsibility to meet, and that is the welfare and the safety of everybody that uses buildings. And so this is why the stringent licensing and registration. Of course, going to an NAAB accredited program, you've already met the stringent when it comes to education. You've already met, or you met the minimum guidelines to earn your education credit for that. But if you didn't go to an NAAB accredited program, you just have to do extra education. It's possible that you may have gone, some people go for a 4-year bachelor degree, like a Bachelor of Science in Architecture. I did that myself. And then I did a 2-year Masters of Architecture, and the Master of Architecture by default is a NAAB accredited, is a NAAB accredited program. There are people, very few, I'll just share with you quickly, but there are very few people who don't go to school. I don't know the exact percentage, maybe like 95% go to school, but there are a few people around in the US, and not all states in the US allow for this. But I know for sure in California, if you work full-time, let's say you finished high school and you work full-time for 12 years under a licensed registered architect, that gets you to earn the educational or meet the educational requirement. And then you would go for you would go to meet the remaining requirements in terms of taking the exams and perhaps specific architectural experience tasks that you have to meet, So the whole thing about education, if you graduated from a NAAB, all our students graduated from NAAB, our program is NAAB accredited for us. There's a couple of other universities in the Middle East, but we are the first school. AUD has the first school that has the 3 accreditations: the NAAB, the NASDAQ, and CEDA for individual design and interior design and architecture. We're the only school outside of the US. There are other schools in the US that hold that distinction. Okay, let's move a little bit away from education. If you have an education question, I'll be happy to, if I didn't answer it already, I'll be happy to answer that at the end. Let's go to experience. And so it is, AXP stands for Architectural Experience Program. And it used to be called IDP. If you guys may have heard of this before, or you may have some knowledge, it used to be referred to as IDP. So sometimes if you go through the website, they may mention this IDP, but we really need to refer to it as AXP. This is just a new term that they associate the architectural experience with. AXP stands for Architectural Experience Program. Okay, let's go. This snapshot here is also from the website. And as you can see, it is extensive. This is actually, there is a document that you can download from the website. And the snapshot is from there. And you can see how extensive that is, and it relates to the program guidelines when it comes to architectural experience program. Anyway, let's go a little bit deeper into this. I think this slide in here. So when it comes to documenting and clocking in your hours in terms of experience, this is how it's broken up, guys. And this is how it's broken up. There are 6 divisions. There is practice. There is 16 tasks, and there's 6 divisions. The first division is practice management. Second is project management, as you can see. The third one is programming and analysis. The fourth one is project planning and design. The fifth one is project development and documentation. And the sixth one is construction and evaluation. And the hours vary, but if you add all this up, it comes to 3,740 required hours minimum. That's really the minimum. So if you're a little bit over, you're absolutely fine, of course. And in some states, they refer to them as jurisdictions in the US. So it depends on the jurisdiction that you eventually want to become registered in. There's a 3 or 4, I'll point them out, I think, in the next slides, that require more hours. but for most of them, it's you're required to meet the 3740 hours. And I'm happy to share this this presentation again. So there's 16 tasks under the first division, 32 under project management, and so on. And the hours vary again from one division to another division. The 3740 hours is like the equivalent of it's like the equivalent of 2 years and something like 2-3 months full time. So if you factor in this the holidays and vacation time or what have you, you're probably looking at 2.5 to 3 years. I don't know, something like around 2.5 years full time to meet all this. So once you finish your 5-year, if it's a 5-year program that you went for, most people do that. Again, there's other educational different variations that you can pursue. That's why I don't know if I said the whole thing is flexible. It's very stringent, and there's a lot of things to be aware of and all that. But it's flexible. Let's see. What's on my mind is this. I want to tell you that when it comes, you see the 6 divisions in here that relate to the experience, the different types of experiences you have to, you have to gain. These 6 divisions mirror themselves in the examination. You know, when it's time, when you finish your experience and you're ready to take the exam, it's the same thing. It's of course the number of hours per exam are different, and the number of questions are different, of course. It doesn't mean that if you're under programming analysis, you're going to have 18 questions. It's different. I'm going to share this with you in a minute. I don't remember the numbers by heart, but it's different. But the thing that's on my mind that I want to make sure I stress is it's kind of like a streamlined process. And so just want to leave you with this thought. These 6 divisions are mirrored in the examination when it comes to meeting the examination requirements. So it's kind of easy to connect the dots for anybody who is pursuing becoming licensed and registered. Okay. Under, you see here that it says, well, this is the total of tasks, 96 tasks here. But if you add up all the tasks within all the divisions, they come to 96. And one of the divisions we were just looking at in the previous slide was programming and analysis tasks. And all this information is available on the website. And I just took snippets, this is just snippets from here and there to put the presentation and to give you insight into this whole thing. But it's very extensive. I'm just really scratching the surface over here. Again, NCARB is a huge organization. Just as a side note, it's an organization that was set up in 1919. You can imagine how old the organization is, and there are dedicated tens of people who work there full time. It's a national organization. There's also a chapter in each jurisdiction, and so there are full-time people in each chapter. And so if the whole organization, again, they oversee the regulating the licensing in each jurisdiction. Even, I mean, they help international folks like us and in other countries. Just as another side note, the AIA, the American Institute of Architects, was founded in 1857. As you can imagine how old these organizations are. So there's a lot of seriousness and matters that took a lot of time to develop and come to where they are today. This is one of the things I'm interested in, is that there is no way. I'm not going off topic here, guys. I just want to share this with you, and then we'll come back to this. So my point is, there is no way that the Society of Architects that's coming into being here in the UAE, that it's not going to look for best practices and for all this knowledge that was developed by other countries. It just has to happen naturally, and it is happening. But so let's go back to this. So the total of number of tasks. I can show you the previous slide. You see here, there's 16 plus 32 and so on. All this makes 96 tasks. And this is just a snippet from the tasks that you need to be aware of when it comes to programming and analysis. So you have to prove and clock in hours that relate to determine impact of applicable zoning and development ordinances to determine project constraints. I'm not going to read all of this. I'm just sharing. Like another one is determine impact of environmental, zoning, and other regulations on site. All right. So yeah, there's different tasks, and then you clock in the hours, and you're working under either a mentor or a supervisor or a mentor. The mentor has to be a licensed architect in the US, the mentor. The supervisor doesn't have to be a licensed architect in the US. It can be a foreign registered architect in Lebanon, in Egypt, in Morocco, in Spain. So this is why there are international alliances and all that. Okay, so I hope I've given you some insight when it comes to this. And just more insight into the educational requirements. There's two settings. There's two settings. It starts with the experience setting A. And so remember the 3740 hours I was just sharing with you? 1860 out of those are related to setting A. You will get to know if you're wondering what is setting A, and maybe there's other settings, you'll get to see that in a minute. But let me just draw your attention that the 1860 hours is part of the 3740 hours. And so this is in all jurisdictions, actually, this is the minimum required. But you have to meet this. We have to meet this as part of the requirements. And then there is extra requirements, which are followed up in setting O. So experience setting O is this. This is the 1860 hours, and then these are the remaining hours. And so there's different types of hours that you can clock in, different types of remaining requirements that you can clock in hours. So there's construction work, there is site visit with a mentor, and all this would, even if you work internationally, you don't have to be in the US, guys, to meet this. So you can be in Dubai, and if you're working for companies like Gensler or a lot of international companies, they don't even have to be necessarily American, like Gensler is American and SOM is American, and it could be a British company, it could be an Emirati company, but as long as there are American licensed architects in there, or even RIBA affiliated architects and so on, you can earn. They just have to have earned themselves already certain qualifications, and then you can, when you work under them, under their supervision or under their mentorship, you can clock in hours that will help you towards this path of American licensure and registration. There are people, by the way, there are practicing architects that hold registration in several jurisdictions in the US and also hold registration in other countries. The more that you have of this, the more that you have basically validated your knowledge and experience, and the more credentials you have, and the more credentials, the more attractive you'll be to certain clients and companies and all that. And this is why I personally push my students to do BIM certification, and now I'm doing this, but because I know the value of it, and it will pay off for those who pursue that. Okay. What else? So yeah, let's keep going. I was just giving you some insight in terms of the extra hours, like in addition to the 1860. And so you have an idea where this comes from. Just one thing on my mind, actually. I think I made a reference to that. You can earn some of these hours even before you start your university training, before you go into a NAAB accredited program or Bachelor of Science Architecture program. You can earn some of these hours. You qualify right after high school, actually. Most people don't think of that because it's very few that are aware of this. In the US, the AIS, the AIA, NCARB, they go to high schools and actually promote this knowledge to future architects. I don't think this happens here in this region, but hopefully maybe in the future it will happen. And so I'm basically just to inform them that you can, if you're really serious about becoming an architect, you can start, just know that you can start earning hours. So if that summer before you enter your Bachelor of Architecture program, you worked for your family's contracting business, or your dad is an architect, or you have a relative, or you just worked, you're trying to get more insight into architecture and get a feel for it, and you clocked in some hours, you can clock those in, you know, and plug them in basically into meeting these requirements. And that starts right after high school. All right, let's go to the next slide. This is the map of the US. And I'm sharing this with you because you see here how most of the states have the same common requirements, more or less, really, more or less. So you see, most states require the 3740. There's a couple of states, or three, because this is part of Michigan. So 3 in here, they require extra hours. And then some have, you see the ones that have these diagonal pattern, they basically, the deal with them is there's a certain window of time where you have to do certain things. So so that's what the pattern means. But overall, it's there's a lot of common requirements. And just don't forget that there's sometimes minor extra requirements depending on the jurisdiction that you eventually want to register or potentially attract clients from and have work done there. Like we mentioned California and we mentioned Florida. And all right, I highly recommend, guys, go to the check out that website and take a look at that. There is an international section, by the way. There isn't, but even if you live internationally, like you live in Dubai, you gotta choose, you gotta make up your mind which jurisdiction you want to start with. So that's important. You really actually want to know, you sort of want to be aware ahead of time which state or jurisdiction you want to. It could be Puerto Rico, it could be it could be a protectorate, you know, or it could be one of the 50 states. I say this so that you are aware of all the requirements that you need to make sure you meet in terms of education, in terms of experience, in terms of exams, because they vary from one jurisdiction to another. There is no one answer for everybody from international. There is no one answer. I have colleagues of mine at the AIA Middle East chapter here. One of them is from Bahrain, and he lives and practices in Bahrain. He's registered, he got his licensing, and he registered himself in New York. I have a couple of other colleagues. One is from South Carolina. I mean, I have the person that I know in Morocco is registered in South Carolina, but he lives and practices in Casablanca. There is you just have to know the jurisdiction that you want to start off with, and then it's really actually pretty straightforward and easy to get yourself registered in other jurisdictions. Of course, you have to meet, if there's extra requirements, you have to meet that. But once you register in one state, you can get registered in other states after that. And a lot of architects do that, actually. Anyway, let's go to this is an important slide. And I hope I'm going at a good pace and everybody's following me. It's just, it's interesting. It's an interesting topic, actually. Listen, you see the window of time in here? This has to do with experience, clocking in your hours and earning how much credit. It has to do with how much credit you earn and when you cannot clock in your hours. So what you're looking at in here, of course, everybody wants to earn 100% credit. You cannot clock in more than 6 months of AXP hours altogether in one go. You see, but you have 8 months. So each time you clock in the hours, it can be less than 6 months. It can be like the total number of hours that you work that you want to clock in can be less than 6 months or up to 6 months. But if you want to clock in 7 months, you cannot do that. You can do 6 months maximum at a time. But you have 8 months. You have 8 months to make sure you earn 100%. So for example, you can have the 6 months here from January to June, and you can clock those in July or August. If you wait till September to clock them in, you can clock them in, but you're going to lose 50% credit. So you're not going to get 100% credit. So it's important to note this window of this duration window of time. You get my point, guys? So 6 months maximum you can clock in at a time, and you cannot take more than 8 months to clock these hours if you want to get 100% credit. Okay. Within the 6 months, you don't have to wait 6 months. You can have you can meet the tasks that we were just looking at earlier. You can meet. Let's say you finished one division. And you finish that in I don't know, in 2 months or 3 months, you can clock this in at this point. You don't have to wait 6 months. The other thing is, if you wait 5 years, you lose 100%. This is the meaning of this 5 years in here. So if you take more than 5 years to clock in, it's going to go to zero credit. Okay, if anybody has a question about this, I can come back. If you hold on to your question, and maybe at the end, if there's a specific thing about this, we can come back to it. Let me pick up some speed because it's already 20 to 3 p.m. So yeah, you can work under a supervisor. You can do this internationally wherever you are. Of course, if you're in US, if you're already in the US, then great. I can see somebody raising their hand, but I think Professor Mohanad is just going to help us answer the questions. I mean, put them together and answer at the end. Or you can work under a mentor, guys. The mentor has to be a licensed, or it can be even a Canadian licensed registered architect. I can tell you that there is an alliance between the US, Australia, the UK, Canada. There's a couple of other countries. I just can't remember them right now, guys. And I want to tell you that and stress that there is flexibility in pursuing all this. Yes, it is very stringent, but there's flexibility. So in one way or another, if you're determined to become licensed, and you really should, if you really see yourself as an architect who, sees themselves designing and building buildings, then you'll get there. I think you can also, even though this says the US, Canada, I think you can get credit because there is an alliance and there is other countries that are coming in and all that. You can get 100% credit hours even if you work for a non-US licensed architect. Right now, depending on the country, you may not get 100% credit. This is something else other than this window of time. If you don't work for a US licensed architect, it depends on the jurisdiction, guys. That's why it's very, this is just scratching the surface. It's really very extensive. But there are some jurisdictions in the US where they require and obligate you to work under a US licensed architect. He or she doesn't have to be American. Guys, it's just the thing about being licensed and registered. It has nothing to do with your nationality, really. It just that NCARB is an American organization, but other than that, it can be any national. Let's see. Let's go to the next. There is an app. There is my AXP app, and it can help you keep track of your education. See here, and guys, I took a snapshot of the experience. So these are the 6 divisions, and it just makes it easy to know where you are and keep track of the whole process and what's left and all that. And there's education and there's exams and payments. Yeah, payments are a fact of life. And all right. Okay, and yeah, I was saying that you can start from high school graduation in terms of clocking in your hours. And yeah, I need to mention this. There is to start the process. You don't need to pay the $100, guys, to go into the NCARB.org website. You can register as a guest, I think, and you can just go into the specific areas that cater to you or that interest you. In your case, because it's different almost from one person to another, unless we're all in the same jurisdiction and we have the same education background and all that. But all our lives are different. We do things at a different time and all that. So it's almost unique per case. Anyway, what is it? You have to pay $100 basically to get the process activated. But if you don't want to get it activated yet, you can be a guest and just check out the procedure and all that, and then activate. But $100 pays for all this that you've seen. This is a nonprofit organization, and it's really extensive. They've been around for a long time. There's a lot of developed material, and there are alliances, and there's just a lot. So the $100 is definitely worth it. It's like nothing to get access to all these resources, guys. The thing about the $85, there are a lot of architects keep that, especially in the US. But the $85 is actually waived if this is active. Oops, I want to share this here. So as long as you're clocking in hours or meeting some other requirements, then this gets waived. You only pay this if you become inactive. So if you set up a record, an NCARB architectural record, and it just sits there and sleeps there, then you're going to pay for that, which is a good thing, I guess. I mean, you pay for if you've got all this up and running and then you're not doing anything with it, you actually pay a penalty for not doing anything with it. So I don't know, maybe it's a good thing. But if you are actually active and entering your hours and meeting other requirements, then you don't have to pay the $85. It's basically $100 for life, as long as this is active. But there comes a time when you've met all the requirements, and then you sort of want to keep this record active, because as you become you go on to becoming the equivalent of Philip Johnson, or you want to, at one point you want to pursue becoming a fellow AIA. A fellow AIA is like the gold bar. And so to get to that point, you've got to keep your record active. All right. Yeah, the exams, ARE stands for Architectural Registration Exams. And see, again, guys, I will just want to, I hope that you kept a visual record of what we looked at under Architectural Experience Program, because you see the 6 divisions in here are mirrored. It's the same thing. So when it comes to taking the exam, first you have to finish the experience, and then you qualify for doing the exam. And the good news, I was telling you that this is, I think I'm almost at the end, guys. I'm looking at my watch, and it's getting close to 10 to 3, but I think I'm going to be wrapping up. So you see here, the exam divisions mirror the experience program part. And the good news I was going to tell you is you can take as much as you can clock in hours. You can also take some of these exams even before you finish your Bachelor of Architecture. You see? But there's also some restrictions, like you cannot wait for 5 years after, like within a window of 5 years to take an exam. So if you finish the hours needed for a specific division, that qualifies you to take the exam right away. If you're going to wait 5 years and then take the exam, you're going to have to redo those required architectural experience program hours. I hope you get my point. So this 5 years, you cannot wait more than 5 years. You have to do that. 5 years is still a long time. So yeah, there is 80 items under practice management, like it's the equivalent of 80 questions. This is the exam duration for this is 3 hours and 30 minutes. And so on. Project management is about 95 items, and so on, guys. Yeah, 120 items, questions under project development and documentation. By the way, those who took the BIM professional certification exams, there's a lot of questions as well in different topics that we cover in BIM. But let me just make a sort of compare it. The type of questions that you get are, there is regulations questions, zoning questions, even questions related to ethics in some division, like professional ethics. And then there is, there's practical based kind of questions. So they give you an exercise and you actually have to do the exercise, and then they'd be looking for a specific response. And so you plug that in to get your points for that, and so on. And then it's pretty involved, but let me just share this with you also. If you don't pass the first time, you have to wait at least, there's a duration of time where you have to wait. You cannot take the exam the next day or the next week. There is a period of time. I think it's 2 months. Don't hold me to it. I need to verify that. But there's a specific window of time where if you don't pass the exam, you have to wait that window of time, and then you take the exam again. For certain, you cannot wait more than 5 years. What else do I want to tell you? I want to tell you this. I want to share this with you. There is, they say that those who pass the exam, all these exams from the first time, and it's 50%. So that's why at the beginning of the presentation today, I was saying it's very stringent, but it's very flexible. But the fact that it's very stringent is, it's really it's good for us because architects are responsible for the welfare and safety of whoever uses the buildings that you design and build. So it's something to be taken very seriously. But as long as you keep track of when you finish your experience, when you qualify for this, and the application, the My App that you can put on your iPad, install on your iPad or your mobiles, that helps a lot. Let's see. Let's keep going in this. This is the version the architectural registration exams are at right now, and there's lots of resources. There is even published preparation manuals, textbooks. There's lots of videos. There's a community. People who took the exams are not allowed to give insight. Basically, they get into trouble, guys. You know how I help? I mean, I basically help. I know this is being recorded, and I'm saying that I help my BIM students. I give them sample questions. I don't know what kind of questions show up on the professional certification exam. It's the same thing for this, but we are not allowed. When you take these exams, it's a breach of professional ethics. If you go around and share the questions, there is like sample questions they'll share with you that. But if you end up taking this exam and you go and share the specific questions from whatever you remember with other future candidates who will be taking this exam, it goes against professional ethics, and you get into trouble basically if the word goes out, and so you really don't want to do that. So you have to earn your license, and passing these exams really on the merit of the knowledge that you have developed and the experience that you have gained. So yeah, it's 50% who passed from the first time. But once you passed, it's an amazing thing, just like we do in BIM certification. Listen, this is a sample question. So yeah, as you get ready for these kind of exams, there is, I'm wrapping up. I know it's getting close to 3 p.m., but so this is a sample question. You can check this out on your own. Just please email me and I'm happy to share this presentation with you. I don't mind. Okay. This is about a graphic. Oh, there's a missing, I'll just tell you this quickly. Oh yeah, there's an element in here missing from the specifications, and you have to click on that element. So the specs are listed, but one of them is not listed. So you click on that. All right, let's go to, yeah, I want to share with you that there's this mobility that comes with becoming a licensed registered architect. Basically, once you meet again, don't think of this in a linear fashion, guys. You don't have to, because it's not linear. So as long as you meet the educational requirements, the experience requirements, the exams requirements, it's all, remember, it's flexible. It's not an American thing. It's really international, and there's a lot of common parallels between what happens to be America and other countries. And then you get your seal. This is really what you want to get, the stamp, the seal, to be able to seal your drawings. The mobility thing is that NCARB gives you a certification that makes it easy for you to get clients in other jurisdictions. Obviously, it makes it easy for you to get yourself registered in other states. If you have to take exams or not, sometimes you don't. In some states, it depends on the jurisdiction, but it makes you mobile. That's the whole thing about mobility. It just makes you more mobile. This is, yeah, I want to share with you, there's a blog site, it's blog website, and there's a lot of information. It's just very extensive. And so there's a lot of resources and help out there. I'm happy to help. I'm the licensing advisor for AUD. And then again, NCARB has social media almost everywhere, really. And this is the last slide, but there is one thing. So yeah, feel free to reach out to NCARB themselves directly or to me. I'm happy to, we're gonna go into a Q&A in a minute, but just one last thing I wanna share with you guys. Give me 1 second in here. I'd like to minimize this, and where is it? There's something here that I want to get your attention to. Just share it with you. Give me a second, I'll find it here. It's called IPAL, and I'm not sure how many people know about it. Oh yeah, IPAL stands for Integrated Path to Architectural Licensing. And it's a very unique program that started in the US. Honestly, I don't know if there are other international schools that are part of it. I would hope that maybe AUD will be the first international school to be part of this. But the whole thing about IPAL is, you see in my presentation, you see how, you see here, I want to go to this slide, guys, just 1 second. This slide in here. You see how, you see how all this comes together, and you don't have to take it in a linear way. The whole thing about IPAL is you can do the whole thing in a specific window of time. So the experience, the examination, you can do it simultaneously while you're attending school. That's what the IPAL is. It's an amazing program, and it's getting bigger and bigger. Not all schools are already part of this. If you go check it out on the website, not all schools, there's very few schools. There's even a map on the website that shows you what schools are doing that. So instead of taking 5 years, you know how it took you 5 years to earn your Bachelor of Architecture for the participants that just graduated or graduated a year or 2 years ago. So if you combine all this, the whole program, it would take you between 7 and 9 years. I hope I'm right, but those who did this took them an average between 7 and 9 years. So by the time you start your Bachelor of Architecture, to the time 8 years later, let's say, you would have gotten your Bachelor of Architecture, you would have met all the architectural experience program required hours, and you would have passed all the ARE exams, architectural registration exams. You would have passed all this. So you can think, you know how medical doctors do it in like 10 years, and it takes them, because from getting their diploma to getting residency and all that, it's kind of the same in architecture. And now it's combined. So this is gaining momentum. This IPAL thing is gaining more and more momentum. I don't believe there are international schools who are participating in this, but who knows? I mean, maybe hopefully AUD will be the first one. It would be great if we can do that. Listen, I'll keep this open. If somebody has a question, I can go back to stop sharing, and if you guys, well, just keep it on sharing. And if you have any questions, Professor Mohammed, if you want to step in and let's coordinate the questions.
Yes. Thank you, Professor Alex, for this informative presentation, this informative talk. I have my video on, but I'm not sure that you can guys, if you guys see me. But we have a question from Faisal, Professor Alex. Please, guys, if you have any questions, please feel free to write in the Q&A, and I'll be asking Professor Alex to answer the question. We have a question, Professor Alex, from Faisal. Says, is there a way to get experience hours without working under a NCARB licensed architect?
From what I know, Faisal, you can, but it's under very specific things. So some tasks you have, I believe the answer is yes, but it's very limited hours probably. The whole thing, NCARB has this tailored in such a way that it's flexible, and it's a good thing to attract as many people. But so it's just very specific hours, but the majority of the hours you'd have to be under a licensed registered architect.
All right, guys. I think we don't have any other questions.
I actually have a question, Professor Alex.
Yes.
A question. So if you want to do the examination, do you have to travel to the US, or there's a way to do it?
Thank you, George. Yeah, that's an excellent question. You know, you can do it in Abu Dhabi, guys. You can do that.
Okay, so there's here. Okay.
In collaboration with the AIA Middle East, you can do it in. You see, that's why we're talking about the other collateral organizations. You can take them. You can take the exams in collaboration with the AIA Middle East in Abu Dhabi. I believe actually that you may be able in the future. You may be able in Bahrain. I'm not certain of that, but I'm certain of Abu Dhabi for sure. Yeah, thank you for asking this question, George. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
NCARB, AIA, AIS, guys, you know, all these collateral organizations are international, and they intend to have alliances and work with other countries, and so it's a good thing for all of us. You know, I think it's a good thing.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right, that's it. No more questions.
Yes.
Go ahead. Any other questions, guys? Maybe you can turn on your mic if you have any question and you want to ask. Turn on your mic.
No, I think it's better to do it through Q&A, but I think this is it.
Yeah, okay,
yeah.
Sorry.
So this is it. I think I don't know. I'll leave it to Muhannad to do the closure, and then I'll thank everyone.
Thanks, George. Thank you very much, Alex, for this informative talk, and thanks for everyone who attended the webinar today. And I hope you guys benefited from the talk. And please, if you have any questions later on, you can reach out to Professor Alex and ask your questions. And I think Professor Alex wouldn't mind, as he mentioned, sharing the presentation with you guys. And I wish that I hope we see you all in the next webinars. We are going to keep these webinars going throughout the semester. So please keep an eye on the announcements that we through our AD social media, through the architecture department Instagram account, and we'll be announcing all these webinars. We have a quick question from Ahmed. Can you send the slides on the email, Professor Alex?
Yeah, I will.
Yes, guys, actually, sorry, Alex. Actually, we're recording the session, so we will have a record of the session. And then this record will be available in the future on the CRID website, and also will be sent to the professor, and if someone wants to see it again, the whole presentation, we can actually send it to you. So instead of actually the presentation itself, you can see the whole recording and the video, because we are recording this webinar session.
Yeah. Great. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Professor George, Professor Mohammed.
And thank you for both. Thank you, Professor Mohammed, for being the moderator. Thank you, Professor Alex, for this very interesting talk and very informative one. And see you next time, guys, with the webinar CRID series. Thank you.
Bye.